Good morning. Welcome to everybody who's joined us this morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Rosa Orenstein, and I'm the chair of the North Texas Renewable Energy Group this year. We have a tremendous program today that is of significant importance and needed information for not only our membership, but for the public at large in the DFW area. And so we're extremely happy with our presenter, Susan Alvarez, today. But before we get going, we also have a tremendous speaker today, and the executive director of TexSES, that's the Texas Solar Energy Society. I take it as a point of personal privilege that I was part of the group that helped select TexSES, bring Pete Parsons to be our executive director. We did have a regional, if not national, search for the new head of TexSES when Lucy Stolzenberg was kind enough to inform us more than a year in advance that she would be retiring at the end of 2019, and so that we could have enough time to search and bring somebody in to try to replace the irreplaceable Lucy. Fortunately for us, we found somebody who could actually fill her shoes and is taking us and taking TexSES to a whole new level. Pete has a very long track record of working in the renewable energy field and in leading organizations that are environmentally friendly. I cannot tell you how grateful and honored I am that Pete decided to accept the job offer for TexSES and everything that she has been doing in this most tumultuous of years of 2020. She has far surpassed any expectations that any of us had for her. Pete, thank you so very much for joining us, having our members meet you in person, so to speak, virtually. And I welcome you very warmly. I know we've talked about hosting you when we're all able to do so in person again, so that we can properly welcome you to NTREG. But in the meantime, thank you so very much for being here, and we look forward to hearing your comments on TexSES and where you are and what you found and where we're going.
Thank you, Rosa. You're terrific. I really appreciate the kind words. Hello, everyone. I'm Pete Parsons, as Rosa said, and I'm the new executive director for the Texas Solar Energy Society, although it's amazing, but I've been here a year. It's been a very interesting year, as you all know, I'm sure know personally as well as professionally. It caused things to go a little bit sideways, especially with the Cool House tour. We took our Cool House tour virtual this year, which we were pleased with the outcome in terms of the presentation and the whole way it went. I was a little disappointed in the turnout, and we are really going to beat the bushes a lot harder again this next year, which we're also going to have the tour virtual this in 2021 as well. We just don't feel like it's safe. So we're going to be back to our June month. We actually had our tour in September of this year because of the taking it virtual, but we're back to June next year. The other challenge that the organization has faced is membership. Membership is down. I'm not sure, if NTREG is experiencing a similar kind of issue, but membership is down. So one of the very first things we plan to do in 2021 is to have a pretty serious membership drive. That's something I think is pretty critical. And also, as we round members or have members renew, NTREG also benefits from that. I'm not sure everyone in your membership knows, but you can join NTREG through the Texas website. So that's, you know, we're thrilled to be able to help NTREG when people decide to go that route. I've got really big plans for 2021 now that I know what I'm doing. It's taken me a little while to figure out who's on first and how to handle all the admin stuff. And so again, it's the last couple of months have been really planning for 2021. I'm really hopeful that a big grant's going to be coming in January, fingers crossed. I'm told that we are shovel ready, and that hopefully that will come to pass in January. I also have plans to go out after additional grants. One of them I would really like to include NTREG. It has to do with an internship program, and I'm actually, if I'm completely honest and forthright with everybody, I'm taking a program that Solar Austin put into place and taking it statewide. It works with students of color from universities and, you know, institution of higher learning that work with traditionally work with students of color, and identifying jobs for them, internship jobs at solar companies. So the idea that I have is that I would bring money to NTREG. You all would help me identify students, and I would identify the companies to place them with. We would also, in Texas would also be sure to follow up, and, you know, I also have some interest in doing some equity training with these solar companies to be sure that, you know, our interns are treated properly and have all they need to be successful. So that's a big project that I'm going to kick off. I'm hoping to get that kicked off quickly, the first part of the year. Next year's going to be a little bit nutty. We've got this legislative session, and I have created a policy committee at Texas, and our business members are able to participate on the policy committee. And we've identified a couple of things that we are definitely going to pay attention to, and those would include a House bill that Representative King, I'm sure you all have heard of this. It's related to impose a tax on the generation of electricity, renewables. You know, of course, it would then make, you know, distributed energy resources less competitive, and it taxes everything but natural gas. So we will be monitoring that bill, and I have people on my policy committee or businesses on my policy committee ready to attend hearings and do whatever is necessary to see what we can do about opposing that. There's also another piece of legislation that has historically been known as the Solar Bill of Rights. My understanding is that name will change. It's being drafted as we speak, and sponsors are being sought. It does many things, this particular piece of legislation, and ensures cities don't penalize solar installations with additional inspections and fees, prevent cities from blocking installations for street-facing DER installations. It removes unreasonable or annoyance exception from property owner statute, prevent utilities from charging targeted fees to solar companies, remove less than 51 homes in property owners statute. So those are the highlights. And we feel like this is worthy of our support. And again, my business members are ready to stand up and do whatever they can to help. We've also been hearing that, okay, thank you, Michael. We also have been hearing, let me just start that over again. One of our business committee members has presented some information about Hamilton Electric Co-op, that they are considering charging their customers some fees, tacking on some fees when they sell solar, you know, that they've generated back into the grid. And we're a little concerned that this is going to set some type of precedent. So we're going to look at, you know, a variety of ways to kind of nip that in the bud before the camel gets all the way into the tent. Not quite sure what that looks like yet. We are talking about maybe some rulemaking at PUC, or if nothing else, just trying to collaborate with the Texas Rural Electric Co-op Association, and potentially, work with board members at different co-ops. So those are some things we're trying to figure out exactly which direction we're going to take with that. We're going to start off assuming that everybody wants to play nice, and that everybody wants to fall in love with each other. And then if things get a little wacky jawed, we'll take it from there. The other thing, so the other big thing that we're going to be working on next year has to do with community solar. I'm very interested again in working with some co-ops to put in some community solar projects. I'm currently speaking with Bluebonnet here. I live in Bastrop, and so it's my local co-op, as well as a co-op that I know is very interested in a community solar project. And so what we're discussing, because he keeps telling me that this doesn't pencil out. So what we're talking about doing is he would put together the basic information about a community solar program and what it would cost to participate. And then it would be my intention to host some different meetings around the county, or within their territory, with churches and chambers of commerce to talk about the advantage of participating. I'm also working with TEPRI, Texas Energy Poverty Research Institute, as well as the Sun Group, to try to figure out some way to do a community solar project in co-ops that's similar to programs like in San Antonio, where they've got a rooftop community solar system that feeds lower income families. So we're working on some community solar initiatives, and I'm very excited about it. And then of course we've got the Cool House Tour. So next year is going to be really busy, and I'm very fortunate in that I have just identified 3 extremely bright UT students. One of them happens to be in Dallas. And I'm hoping that they're going to be able to really provide me with the kind of support I need in some of these things, particularly when it comes to research and attending hearings and things like that. I don't know if you all know, but there might be some of you that don't know a little bit about Texas. We have 5 different chapters, with NTREG being one of them. We also have a chapter in Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and now El Paso. So it's great. It's great fun. I love my job. I have a wonderful, terrific, supportive board, and I'm looking forward to next year. So please reach out to me. I can put my contact information in the chat box. And if you have any questions or would like to know more about what we're doing, feel free to reach out to me. I'm very happy to get back with you. So again, thank you, Rosa, for inviting me and let me introduce myself.
You bet. It was a long time coming. I wish we had done it earlier, but here we are because you've been there almost a year. I know that Michael Martin had a question on the chat group about how viable and practically doable community solar is in the deregulated parts of Texas. And I don't know that you've dealt with that.
I don't know that I know the answer yet. We're just getting ready to jump into it and see where we, where we can participate and help. In some instances, particularly, in the Houston area, I think they're having some success with some programs there. So I don't really, again, I'm not quite sure exactly how Texas plans to step up and help in that arena. If we do anything, I'm sure it will be with lower income families. So that's where I am right now with that particular question and or answer. Let's see.
Terrific. I think we're all trying to figure out how to crack that nut.
Right.
Let's go back to our agenda. Lissa, you want to have a quick report for the membership?
Hi, my name is Lissa Megal. I'm the membership coordinator. As Rosa said, I want to welcome everybody here today. Our meetings are free and open to the public, but that being said, we do have some expenses, and we would be delighted if you want to join NTREG. It's only $20 a year for an individual membership. You can go to our website, the NTREG website, and join us directly, or as Pete pointed out, Texas also handles joining NTREG, and if you go straight to the Texas website, you can join NTREG, Texas, and even ACES all in one go. So that makes it pretty convenient. So the kinds of expenses we're having normally, we have to pay for our meeting place. Now we're paying for Zoom, little expenses like that. In normal times, we have booth fees. We're surely hoping that by, late spring, summer, early fall, that we'll be back to having booths. So, those membership fees help us with that, and for any projects that we want to do. So if you have any questions, go ahead. You can, on our website, there's a contact page. You can send me an email or join. We'd love to have you. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Melon, do you have anything? Okay, I didn't hear anything from Melon. Since everything's virtual right now, we don't really have anything coming up that we would need physical volunteers to help us with, as we normally do. It was, as Lisa suggested, with booths that we man in different Earth Day events, for example, that would normally take place. But we do have announcements. I'm going to start out with, we have a legislative and policy committee, and members, participants on this group are encouraged, if you want to join and help with monitoring the legislative session this year, with policy at the PUC regarding renewables. Now is the time to join and step up. We need as much help as we can get, because it's not a 1 or 2 person job, and different people have different interests in different parts of policy and legislative actions that might take place with the legislature this year. So if you're interested, you can either contact anybody on the board and let us know about your interest, and we will get you as part of the committee so that you all can start working on that. Michael, did you have anything on that?
No.
Okay. We also have elections coming up. There are a number of positions that are coming open on the board, and we encourage you to go to our website and submit your name, submit yourself, or if there's somebody else that you think would be a great addition to our board, we encourage you to urge them to submit their name. The election takes place in February, but the submissions are in January. So please step up and become more involved with NTREG, especially if there's something that's burning that you just can't get enough of regarding renewables. Again, step up and become part of the board or part of a committee, so that you can be more active and contribute a little bit more. Those are my 2 main announcements. Is there anybody on the Climate Reality Project for their announcement?
I want to apologize for not including the date of the meeting. It's usually, I believe it's the 3rd Saturday of every month. I did include their website link where you can RSVP to join the meeting.
Do any members participating in the meeting have any announcements they want to make about any upcoming events, or any other items regarding renewables that it's on your mind. Now's the time to speak up. Okay, I'm not hearing.
This is
Molly.
Molly Rook. I just wanted to say that the energy working group is on pause right now while we're getting more direction from DISD about how to proceed. So I'll let you know when I have some news on that, hopefully by next week.
Terrific, Molly. And you know, you can always post on the NTREG groups IO, so that that's an easy way of you letting the membership as a whole know what's going on. Any other members who have any announcements? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. How about any guests? Any guests have any announcements they wish to make? Hearing none. Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Rosa. And thank you everyone for joining today. I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. And I want to thank our sponsors that have helped support us doing our virtual solar tour this year, which ACES, of course, and Texas. Thank you so much. And of course, Dallas College and the city of Dallas. You've been tremendous supporters for our programs. And we're pretty excited to have, actually, we're very excited to have Susan with us today. And I'm going to introduce her. Ms. Alvarez, she's currently the Assistant Director of the City of Dallas Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering with a minor in Geology from Rice University. She's a registered professional engineer in Texas and 5 other Western states. She's also a certified floodplain manager and a master naturalist in Texas. We're very fortunate to have her here in Dallas. Ms. Alvarez brings over 35 years experience and broad political experience in civil or practical experience in civil engineering and environmental planning, engineering, and management for municipal, tribal, state, and federal governments. So she has everyone's interest at heart. She is focused currently on implementing the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan, along with the city's ISO 1401 environmental management system and several other related efforts. And let me say, she is one busy lady, and she's involved in so many different aspects of trying to move Dallas forward. So I'm going to turn it over to her. I'm going to stop my share, and if you would start sharing your screen.
Sure.
Susan, we'll get moving forward with your program. Thank you so much again for being here.
Okay, can y'all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay, so I'm excited to be here too. It's been a while. I think the last time I presented on our climate plan, we were still in the throes of pulling it together. And I, first of all, want to thank NTREG for your support in telling us when we're going sideways, for writing a letter of support to the city, and for ongoing support, pestering, heads up on grants, all kinds of things that have actually been really, really helpful.
Susan, if I interject real fast, and just 2 things. One is I just want to remind everyone that questions, as you go on, if there's a question, if you put it in the chat, then we'll try to organize and ask Susan directly. And the other thing is that if we go over our time, it's to 12, we can continue going on if there's interest and we still have some discussion we want to go on. If Susan's willing to stay with us, we can do that. So everyone, Susan will do her best to try to answer any and all questions that come to her. So,
and I know there will be some, and I look forward to trying to answer them. You will note from my brief biography, I am not an electrical engineer. I am not a mechanical engineer. I'm generally civil most days. And so there may be some questions that I need to get back with you on. And so I'll couch it there. I'm trying to get the slides to advance for whatever reason they don't want to.
You have it in your,
Yeah.
do you have
I'm
it
gonna
set up as a slideshow? Is the arrow down at the bottom left to move it forward? Bottom left of your screen, do you see two little arrows?
I do not. I see Rosenstein with an arrow on the people. I don't see an arrow for, let's
No, no,
try.
bottom, not on your screen, but on the slide itself.
I'm not, that's not where I am. I'm on full screen, and so I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
And I've tried enter and there we go. Yay. Okay. Maybe I just didn't push hard enough.
Yeah, did you?
So I'm going to kind of, for some of you that have not seen kind of what was driving city decision making, I will do a quick overview of how we got here. And then I'm going to go over both the plan and what we're doing this year in the plan at the same time, because that makes the most sense. Give a little bit of information on some of our transparency efforts. One of the things we heard loud and clear when we were developing the plan is they didn't want it to be a pretty plan that sat on the shelf and didn't get done. And they wanted also an ongoing way for the community to keep in touch with what we're doing, to weigh in on what we're doing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I am excited that Pete was talking about community solar. We're doing some stuff there. So I want to give an update on some of those projects that we're doing. And then I had a whole flurry of questions about how NTREG can help. And so I've got some ideas there as well. But first of all, and Michael almost gave this away before the meeting, does anyone know what today is? It's an important day other than the 12th of December. Yes.
Paris Climate Accord.
Yes. So it is the 5th anniversary of the Paris Climate Agreement. And with the election of Biden and Harris, there has been a whole flurry of cities and businesses saying, hey, we're still in. The government may have been taking a break, but we're still in. Our mayor re-upped our commitment to the Paris Agreement as part of the We're Still In group, which is about 1,500 cities, local governments, and businesses. And also as part of 458 US climate mayors. And so we're still in. We're still working forward. We're still helping some of our neighboring cities move forward as well, and we're excited about it. I'm hopeful with this effort that we will re-sign and that we will get some federal support for some of the actions that are going on at the local effort. So here's our mayor. He's been a great cheerleader for us, but he is looking at our CECAP as being basically common sense things that we should be doing, and has been pushing us to make sure that we look at everything that we've got in our plan through an equity and inclusion lens, and so that we're helping those that will be most impacted by climate change first, and following along otherwise. So this is from the National Climate Assessment. We're looking at 1 to 2 more months of extreme days. An extreme day is a day that is over 100 degrees. And that is challenging. We do hot in Texas, but that's more of the truly hot, uncomfortable part of summer. We're looking at a 5-degree temperature increase. We're looking at ongoing poor air quality. And then during 2015, we went from significant level 3 drought to flooding, uncontrolled flooding in a period of a month. And that is something that we would anticipate seeing moving forward more often. And so 2015 was kind of like a pivotal year when we started, well, actually we spent a lot of time in our office of emergency management, but we started looking at things a little more seriously and what can we do to make this not be an ongoing thing. One of the other things is that our council has, and actually our business community as well, has said we need the business case for this. This isn't about hugging trees. This is a map by the National Weather Service as part of NOAA of $1 billion plus disasters. You can see Texas leads the country. And we unfortunately are in the top 10 of all categories that they track this type of disaster in. In addition, and I don't know if the little view window is on the side or not, but you can see an upward trend in severe storm counts. I think October 2019, when several of us went on the Cool House tour, we came home to a straight line wind event that knocked out power in East Dallas for about 3 weeks. It was followed that year by a 6-mile long tornado that again knocked power out for a significant part of the city for a while. And that happened while we were developing our plan. And so in a way it was timely. The other thing that you'll note is on the right-hand side of this graph is the billions that we've spent. As a country, we have spent over 300, 400 billion a year in storms. And so it could be that we may want to spend a little bit of money towards preventing some of these storms. So there is a case to be made for both mitigation and adaptation efforts related to climate. One of the first places that you start is in a greenhouse gas emission inventory. We did ours according to ICLEI, the international standard for this. No surprise, the biggest chunk of our emissions come from buildings and energy. The biggest single group, however, is in our transportation. We don't have as much industrial processes in Dallas. And then both our solid waste management group and our wastewater treatment efforts cheat a little bit. We are pulling gas off of the landfill and selling it to California. We have installed cogeneration on our waste sludge digester at the wastewater treatment plant. And so, it's a 385 million gallon per day facility, of which half of the power is coming from our sludge. And so our relative contributions of emissions from those two sectors is a little bit less than some of the others. This is the evaluation that we did on meeting the targets of the Paris Climate Accord. You will note that there is a gap between what we will do right now with the actions in this plan and where we want to be. And other cities have filled that gap by buying carbon credits. That's cheating. The other thing that you will note is that the collective portions related to transportation and building, transportation is red and buildings is yellow, stays the same. And that's because ERCOT predicts their mix to 2030. Our consultants kept that mix consistent moving forward. And so any changes to that mix are not reflected in this forecast. Our intent is to update our emissions inventory and tweak our actions, basically ratchet things up over time to get closer to the target. And so one of the other challenges we have, this is the 2019 grid mix from ERCOT. And one of the challenges we have, and it is reflected in that model, is that about 2/3 to 3/4 of our energy generation in Texas is carbon-based. A big chunk is coal. We've got natural gas. We've got other kinds of gas. So it's great to go electrify everything, but if your electricity grid is powered through carbon sources, you're still going to have those emissions in the mix. And so that is one of our challenges. Mm-hmm. So we got our greenhouse gas inventory together. We convened a whole bunch of stakeholders, and our rule was basically to talk to anybody that wanted to talk to us. And we met with everyone from the Dallas Regional Chamber to the Democratic Eco-Socialists. And they had a little bit different take on things. You will notice in the on my left-hand corner, there's an NTREG logo, because you all were really helpful to us as we pulled this together. We did over 200 meetings in the period of a year. I think the night that took the cake was National Night Out, when we had staff at 13-minute meetings. But it was a great opportunity to hear directly from our communities. We visited every single one of our 53 zip codes. We had great one-on-one conversations, and that largely shaped the actions in our plan. One of the things that makes our plan a little bit different, you notice we're calling it comprehensive, and that is most plans work on mitigation, which is reducing the emissions, and or they work on adaptation, which is managing the risk of climate change. When we started looking at our existing plans and our existing things that we were doing, actions, we recognized the role of nature-based solutions. We also recognize that environmental quality towards improving overall sustainability should be in the mix. And so we have all three areas in our plan. The other thing that we noticed, and it was consistent with national planning, international planning, really, relative to climate plans. And it also was reflected by our neighborhoods, is that we had to have a strong environmental justice piece to this. And so that's kind of in the middle of everything. So this is one of the places where, and I didn't put them all in because then it was going to be an extremely text heavy slide, but we have 8 different areas that were identified through meeting with the community. In each of those 8, we have some specific targets. The entire plan is focused on getting us to the 1.5 degree drop per the IPCC in meeting the Paris goals. So each one of these areas does have numeric targets. And again, we're going to be looking at our greenhouse gas inventory and tweaking as necessary. The thing that's a little bit interesting is that we don't see a lot of overt reductions in emissions in some of our categories, but we do feel like they do some other really important quality of life impacts. And one of the big ones that came home during the pandemic was the category on affordable access to food. We knew we had food deserts until the pandemic happened. We didn't realize that we had food supply chain issues, and that we had some families, actually thousands of families, that were one paycheck away from a food line. And so while it doesn't necessarily directly address emissions, it is inordinately important to the city. So along the lines of a partridge in a pear tree, we have 8 areas with 97 actions. And one of the other things that I didn't realize we were different until we attended a meeting of equity and climate plans that was put on by the USGBC. And apparently we were the poster child for incorporating equity into our plan.
Wow.
And we started with 400 actions. Our plan still has a whole bunch more actions than others, but we also screened with respect to environmental justice, with respect to equity, and co-benefits. The ones that we've got in the plan have at least more than one co-benefit, like creating jobs, improving quality of life, environmental stewardship, etc. So I feel like we've done it is a comprehensive plan. It is, I will tell you, kind of difficult to read in all one thing. So I'm going to try to kind of zip through these, because otherwise we all, including me, will be kind of buggy-eyed by the time I'm done. So the plan was unanimously adopted in the middle of COVID on May 27th. We had originally intended to pass it on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, but with the government shutdown, we wanted one more month just to make sure everybody had a chance to look at the final plan before we moved it forward. I think that worked to our benefit. It was unanimously passed by council. We had letters of support from our environmental community, from some of our social justice advocates, from several hospitals and public health organizations, NTREG, and a partridge in pear tree. So we did have good support for this plan, and we've had great support moving forward. One of the things that made us a little bit nervous is, I don't know if you are familiar with this or not, but our city manager has a dashboard. We like dashboards at the city of Dallas. And they thought it was really exciting to put 92% of the actions in the CECAP onto this dashboard for implementation this year. There was a very deep inhale of breath among everyone in our department, because as you know, this is a 30-year plan to be updated every 2 to 3 years. And there's nothing in there that is supposed to extend over 10 years, but it is not a 1-year plan. And so we went marching down to the budget office and marching down to the city manager's office and said, help, this isn't a 1-year plan. We do have a plan for implementation, but it's not all 1 year. And so we do have a measure on the citywide. It is linked to dallasclimateaction.com. And what we did when they wanted us to identify what we're doing, we worked with actually 19 other city departments. We're working with DART, we're working with NTREG, we're working with others in and outside of the city. So we identified 48 actions that we're working on out of 97. So that's about half. And we identified 136 milestones, which may not be the entire action, but it's getting us started. Because we are working with so many other players, we're doing quarterly reporting, and the fabulous Brittany Wells has updated the website accordingly. That was the other thing. We got some feedback yesterday where we'd like to have the place where all that quarterly reporting resides a little more obvious. And so we're going to work on that. One of the other things that is in our work plan, but is not necessarily a separate item in our original climate plan, is our greenhouse gas inventory was done in 2015. For whatever reason, they didn't finish it till 2018. So if you're looking at updating your plan every 2 or 3 years, we're overdue. We did not want to hold up developing the climate plan for a new greenhouse gas inventory. So we went with the 2015 data, but we are currently updating that greenhouse gas inventory because 2020 is a really weird year for data. We're using the 2019. I anticipate we'll see some improvement, but we won't know till we get the data. So that's an important action that we're working on as part of this implementation plan. So what I'm going to do is go pretty quickly through the 8 areas, kind of look globally at our goals, and then look at what we're working on this year. It's a lot. That's the other thing that took us a little bit of time to get the dashboard set up for this, because we're reporting on a lot. So the first one, and this is one that is in your realm, is buildings. So we overall want to increase our energy efficiency. We want to ensure that new buildings are sustainably constructed. We do have a green building code in Dallas requiring LEED silver or better, and it's carbon neutral. The other lessons learned was that October tornado happened while we were developing our plan. And while we have a resilient Dallas plan, it is focused on social resilience, not physical or climate resilience. And so we added in some of those measures into our climate plan because it was a lessons learned. We need to address this. So we're looking at some things. I'm really excited. We have a new Vickery Meadows library. The walls on that library are curved, which I don't know if you know that much about wind resistance, but the wind will go around a curved structure better than straight. It has continuous internal insulation. They put solar in, they put permeable paving. It's just a fantastic example of a green building, and I'm very excited about it. Unfortunately, it opened in November physically, but it's not open to the public yet because of COVID, which is really, really sad. But anyway, so this is an area where we've got a bunch of friends and other departments helping us, and we're kind of on the sidelines cheering. But they're doing a good job on it, and I'm really excited to have good partners to work on our buildings and energy pieces. So, and I apologize. I think I've sent the PDF to Michael. I realize this is a boatload of text. But we're working in 5 areas. We're working with our buildings and building services department on energy benchmarking for our city facilities. They are putting our facilities into an energy management system. And at the same time, they're looking at low-cost updates based on that energy management system and evaluation of our facilities. And we're also evaluating the ability to add solar to our facilities. It's interesting, our engineer in charge of that program was telling me that we shouldn't do solar for resiliency, because we're also looking on B15 at resilience hubs. So I reached out to the Department of Energy, and they're doing a whole bunch of research on that, and they very kindly shared it with us. And it basically gets into how you connect the panels to the roof so that there isn't uplift. But so we're looking at some things like that, and we found some great sources of assistance. Our Dallas-Fort Worth Airport is actually the first level 3 carbon accreditation or accredited airport in the US. So we're cheering them on to maintain that. And level 4, left field is a level 2. They are looking at ongoing ways of improving their certification as well. So again, we're supporting and cheering their actions. We mentioned PACE earlier, so we're trying to expand participation in that program. We are also looking at we have a green business certification program that's not very well known. It's handled out of our zero waste group. We're planning to expand that, work with the local chambers, et cetera, to kind of move that forward a little bit more. B11 is a place where we will likely need some help from NTREG, and that's updating our building code for the 2021 international, particularly on energy efficiency and wiring to support both solar voltaics and electric. We found it's a whole lot easier and cheaper to do it at the outset than to do retrofits. And last, I already talked about resilience hubs. That was one of those lessons learned during doing a climate plan during tornadoes. So next area is also an area where you have a lot of interest. We generate and use renewable, reliable, affordable energy. This is the Winston School on the photo. You probably recognize it. I was introduced to their facility as part of our solar tour. And I like this picture because I was told we couldn't do wind in Dallas. And I always like proving someone wrong. And so they've got wind and solar at this school. So we have 3 areas basically under energy. We're working to expand our educational programs. We have a global theme of kind of building support for the program this year. And so that's where the education comes in. We're also looking at grants and subsidies like crazy. We are working with other partners in and outside of the city. TEPRI has been great. The National Community Solar Organization by the Department of Energy has been really helpful. And so this is a lot of planning type work in the energy world. Number 2, and I can't see it because my thing is blocking, but we just got back our draft report from a grant that we got under the Community Solar Technical Grant Program from the Department of Energy. I got it like yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm really excited. We were one of the few programs to get additional budget from our council, not knowing we were going to get budget when we started doing, I think it was like March or April. We were not looking at a very happy budget scenario from city, and this was before we got the CARES Act funding. And so we have a fabulous grant writing team, and I got with them and we did like 10 different grant applications. The community solar grant was referred to us by James Orenstein. I'm very grateful to him for bringing it to our attention because the National Community Solar Partnership is a great source of information for this sort of thing. And this, our participation in this is kind of it's our equity element on piloting solar or pushing solar in Dallas. We're looking at low to middle income. We're looking at multifamily. And actually it's our project, I anticipate to be very similar to what Houston did. We spoke with the director of our sanitation services department. We have several closed landfills in where we have some demographics from both racial and income that would indicate some potential benefit from community solar. And they have indicated that sure, we can put solar on the landfill, including McComas, the closed cells there. And so I anticipate using the results of the report we received through our grant to move it forward, do a request for competitive sealed proposals, probably late winter, like first or second quarter of 21, towards moving that forward towards construction. The city will need to work on marketing that program to the folks that it's intended to. But with it being on city property, it allows us to make it available to anyone, regardless of whether they own their home or not, regardless on the condition of their roof. And so we're really excited about that particular program. We do have a green energy policy for city facilities. And part of that too is our contract is for 100% renewable energy, but it includes a certain portion of funding from our energy provider towards developing on and offsite generation. And so we're starting to look at opportunities for developing facilities for renewable energy on city property so that we can, at least for the power that we use, convert from using renewable energy credits to our own generation. So I'm excited about that too. And then this last one, advocate for renewable energy policies. We talked about that a little bit before the main meeting. I am on our city team. We do have renewable energy on our formal legislative agenda for this year. We are working with other cities in North Texas through the RICE Commission at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. There we go. So we're working with other cities. We've had some hospital organizations reach out to coordinate on legislative agendas as well. This is an area where we could certainly use some help from NTREG. Transportation is our largest area, no surprise, for emissions. The stuff we need to do is we need to shift people away from single vehicle travel. We need to reduce trips where people go by themselves. Even if you're driving electric, if you're one of the 100,000 vehicles on the road, you're contributing to congestion. One of the big things is to synergize jobs and housing with transportation. We have two really unique opportunities right now. One is we are currently doing the master planning for a 600-acre former military facility near Mountain Creek Lake, which is absolutely lovely, but needs to be cleaned up. And when you do a cleanup like this, the first question is how clean? We can't determine the cleanup levels without having a good master plan. So we're looking at that as being a really good opportunity to implement a project where people don't necessarily have to drive clear across town to get to their job, where they can have affordable housing that's nice, and where we can tie in with some alternative forms of transportation. So we're doing that there. We're also updating our comprehensive land plan with our planning and urban design group and trying to basically look at how we're doing development in Dallas so that we can encourage maybe more of a new urbanist type approach, if you will. And this is probably also our largest area relative to planning, because our Office of Economic Development gets in it, Public Works, Transportation, even our own fleet group gets into this. So this is our biggest area relative to coordination and implementation. Okay, come on, let's go.
Is it not working for you again?
Yeah, it's feeling ornery. Let's see if it goes. It's not doing anything.
Well, let's hope mass transit doesn't work like that.
What?
Let's hope mass transit doesn't work like that. Can't get from
Yeah,
point A
indeed.
to point B. Keep on trying. Usually, there we go.
There we go. So, so one of the big ones, and this is where we have gotten a lot of encouragement from the folks in NTREG, is transitioning both our bus and light duty fleet to electric. So we're working with that. We're working with our fleet department, and this is an area where council gave us funding as part of a budget, is to do a fleet electrification study. We didn't surprise, that was kind of a nice surprise. And when I was working with the fleet director, it was something he was looking at anyway. And we're working along the same lines relative to optimal locations to take advantage of Volkswagen funding and other funding for EV charging and actually the vehicles themselves. We're working part of a group with DART, with our transportation department, to expand transit. Major super commuting cities are Dallas, Fort Worth, also Dallas, Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, the ones that you do short haul flights, because our aviation industry, even though our airports are getting awards for their carbon neutrality, aviation typically has a pretty heavy environmental footprint. And so we're trying to find electric alternatives to that. The travel demand management strategies, that is one thing that we kind of threw in the plan under transportation because it's something you do. It's shifting office schedules, working from home, et cetera, et cetera. What do you know, in the middle of our planning, we got some opportunities to pilot that because government shutdown. So the strategic mobility plan just got adopted by council. We worked with that department so that a lot of the major actions in our plan are echoed in their plan as well. And their plan is in a little bit more detail than what we've got. That said, I think it was Thursday or Friday, it was the 10th. So that was Thursday, at the Regional Transportation Board, we were provided information that North Texas failed to meet their deadline for meeting air quality attainment standards. And so we are going to be reclassed into, I think it's significant non-attainment. And we will have to work with the COG and our other cities towards how to fix this. A lot of the things in our strategic mobility plan, in our air quality section of this plan, and in our CECAP will help if we can get them adopted regionally. And one of the things they're looking at is regional formalized travel demand management strategies. So I would say stay tuned. This is literally right off the presses relative to our friends at COG. So we got even more. And unfortunately, it's not my department that has to do all this stuff. So, yeah, hello?
I don't think you have enough
um,
lists there, Susan.
What?
I don't think you have enough lists there.
Well, you know,
Well,
people are
I
worried
don't
that
think
we're
we have
not
enough
doing
to do.
anything on this plan, and there's a whole lot to it. We are.
I'm
And
joking.
again, this is kind of hard to read, and I apologize, but there's a whole lot there. The first one is the land use strategy. And it's we're working with both planning and urban design and the strategic mobility plan and the economic development plan. A lot of this gets into finding ways where people don't have to drive clear across town to have a job with market wages. And so that's why we've got economic development in there. We're doing a lot of work right now with our zoning advisory committee, with our city planning commission, to revise our development standards relative to parking ordinance. And that's been interesting because they've had the different departments come in, and the planning commissioners are on our zoning committee are pestering us with all kinds of questions about, well, do you want parking maximums? Do you want parking minimums? Do you want market-based? And quite frankly, it is different approaches in different parts of the city. We have data from COG and from our transportation group that show that maximum parking, which is at about 3 in the morning in residential areas, is only between 40 and 60%. We have data from downtown showing that we're in a lot of cases overparked in some areas and have challenging parking in other areas. So I'm excited about the potential of what we can do to fix this. Realistically, our strategy and our policies right now support using single occupancy vehicles. If we make parking a little bit harder, then people will think about, and hand in hand with that, if we make parking harder and we make transportation and transit easier, then we have a chance at maybe revising how we do parking, how we do land use, some other things like that. We're also working with, ironically, our police department and Encore in our transportation department on retrofits for our traffic and street lights. The police department has some areas, and this is one of those equity pieces too. Encore basically owns 90% of our street lights. We own our traffic lights. We are, as those lights are up for replacement, we're replacing them with LEDs. But the police department identified some high crime areas where additional lighting would be helpful. And so they have, I think, $500,000 in funding towards updating both traffic and street lights in those areas, to both help as a crime strategy and to help in our world with less energy used for that purpose. I wonder why this doesn't want to do this.
Maybe it's your bandwidth.
It could be, but I'm sitting right by my Wi-Fi port.
Yeah, maybe it's our bandwidth. I have a couple questions that have just come in. You want to take a break?
Sure.
So just to recap on Robert Verkus asked, and he may have not caught it earlier, is that the plan that you're presenting here and the update, this is actually a plan that's already been voted on and passed by the city council, right? So you're moving forward. Do you ever have to come back and get it reapproved, or this is moving forward over the next 30 years, correct?
So the way we have it set up, and this gets into some of the plan itself, the CECAP is approved. Our interim work plan, which is all these 20 million milestones, has also been approved. The way our original resolution was written is that we will do a formal status report on the plan every April. Additionally, as part of our budgeting, we will need to have reporting on where we are on all these milestones every September. So we have basically twice a year reporting on status. The other piece that we have is that same resolution includes updating the greenhouse gas inventory every 3 years with an evaluation of effectiveness of the plan. So, so the idea is we're going to be tweaking it at least every 3 years, probably more often. In other words, if we're running down some things that make sense now, and 5 years from now, a lot can change in 5 years, a lot can change in 1 year. We can change and should change and have been directed to update the plan. I'll get into this a little bit later in the presentation, but we have in the first, the mayor has said that this is a priority for him. And in order to provide the emphasis needed for both developing and implementing the CECAP, he developed the first Environment and Sustainability Council Committee. The Dallas, in all its years of being a city, has never had a council committee focused on the environment. We have 2 goals for that committee. One is to address environmental equity and social justice issues related to the environment. The other is to develop and implement the CECAP. So every month I go and we report on different topics as requested by the chair and that committee. The first one in January will be on IPM, and somebody asked earlier, and it's in a later action focus area about leaf blowers. We're doing a presentation in January on leaf blowers. So we have a council committee that's on us. There's no cruising and saying, no, we're not ready to present. Sorry. We're doing monthly reports to that committee, and actually it involves a one-on-one with the committee chair before that committee. And so we're under a pretty good microscope on this. I think it's a good thing because it keeps it at top of mind. It keeps the pressure on for performance, and it keeps us moving forward. Additionally, one of the other concerns, and it's also written into the resolution adopting the CECAP, was there was concern that we would get all this neighborhood input into the plan and then we would go away and not talk to the neighborhood and not get input. And so there was a desire for ongoing input into the plan, such as a board or commission. I don't know why, but the board or commission process in the city of Dallas typically takes a year to 18 months. We didn't want to wait a year to 18 months to get public input into the plan. So we developed an environmental task force to help shape what that board or commission looks like and to help shape what our implementation plan looks like. Unfortunately, they started a little bit late on this year's plan, but they have reviewed it. And I anticipate towards the first part of the year, that committee will be helping us as we start our budget process in the January, February timeframe. So I would anticipate some eyes on where we are on this plan and some suggestions for what we do to take it forward in the 21-22 budget area. So that's probably a really long answer, but that's the answer.
No, that's great. You brought up a couple other things, and I have a question from Mellon West about your team, and what's the size of your staff, and your annual budget. I know you have to fight for that every year, and you got the you have.
My team is small but mighty. We have 5 people dedicated full-time to CECAP. We have 100 people in our department, and there is some areas of the plan where other folks in the department are working. We have incorporated CECAP goals into our environmental management system. We have 22 departments that are in that system. And so the 2015 standard for ISO EMS programs includes evaluation of risk. And so we have asked them to include into their objectives and targets an assessment of environmental risk. And so we have 5 people on the primary team, but we've got 100 people working in different parts of the plan. And we have people in other departments working on parts of the plan. I'm going to try again on my window.
Yeah, it's great to see that coordinated effort. You brought up something in regards to street lights and stop lights changing out, going to LED. So Dharma asked a question in regards to, is there consideration that when you start replacing or adding new street lights, that they be solar powered LEDs so you don't have to worry about wiring infrastructure?
Actually, that is something we've talked about, because we Encore, and I don't know if there's anybody from Encore on this, but they're fine with switching out the lights before they fall apart, but they do it for a price, and the price is crazy. Additionally, we have an ongoing maintenance agreement, and while and I know that LEDs require less maintenance than traditional lighting, they want to charge the same amount for that maintenance. And so we are looking at solar, mainly to kind of do an end around, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. There was another comment regarding the LED street lighting and everything. And are you familiar with the dark skies?
I am.
As far as instead of the lights pointing up, they're pointing down, and they're working in a certain, so it makes the night more friendly.
Yes, I think we have, and it was on a prior screen. I think we do have something to look at our lighting standard relative to that. Okay, I'm frustrated. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute.
Okay.
Completely go out.
If we need to, I have your presentation. It's not as when I got it, I can move it through, and you can just tell me to advance the screen if you want me to do that. So, I have a question here. Another item from Dharma. He's talking about referencing the T11, where gas stations and strip mall shopping centers to be equipped with electric chargers to increase EV charging, cars and buses.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that is an initiative that you're trying to talk with?
That's a couple slides away. Yes.
Right, okay. Good deal.
I'm gonna try again.
I'm seeing some pretty innovative charging stations with both gas stations and just individual charging stations that are coming out of Europe, like England and France and those areas, that they're really moving fast and forward as far as.
That's actually, can y'all see my screen?
I can. It's saying SW, actions underway.
Yeah, I'm going to go back. So in answer to your question, it's several slides down, but the answer is yes. We're working with a vendor that actually has solar powered trailers that he's putting throughout DFW. It's kind of a nice business model because it's a trailer and it's solar powered. And they're co-locating with like 7-Elevens and gas stations. It's a model. They did something like it in Las Vegas. and are rolling out here. They have offered a partnership with us to do public information releases on their screen and along with their own advertising. It's interesting, the solar is offered and they're doing it at existing gas stations. The thing that's kind of cool is because it's solar, they don't have to necessarily do all the permitting that you would do with a fixed situation. They don't have to wire it. They don't have to do conduit. They don't have to do any site permits. They can just roll the trailer in and park it. And the feedback they have gotten is it's a lot of gas stations that want to be able to help with EV charging as part of an energy transfer. Most 7-Elevens and gas stations get most of their money from snacks and such that people buy while their car is fueling. And so by offering EV power at a traditional gas station, they can still sell Slurpees. And it helps expand the network. So that is what we're working on. Internally, we're doing I think was on the power slide, we're looking at where it makes sense for us to add them at some of our public facing facilities. And generally it's going to be libraries and rec centers where we have sufficient traffic and people will be there. They can do something else while their car is charging. So we are in process on that.
Excellent.
Goal
So-
7 is probably
So
not as much.
the slide that I'm seeing, Susan, is goal 4. Dallas is a zero waste community.
That's where I
you are?
am.
All right. Good.
Yeah, so this is one where we got a whole lot of feedback from the public. It is not one of our high emissions thing, but it is something that we need to do as part of our waste management services. So we're trying to move, as many of you know, the recycling market is not real healthy right now. So we're looking at more of a materials resource approach to go beyond recycling, choosing to refuse excessive packaging, reusing things, repairing. We're looking at revising our whole waste system as part of an update to the local solid waste management plan. And we're looking at generating energy from organics. We're working on a regional grant with COG relative to anaerobic digestion of organic food, if you will. So this is another area where it's not as impactful to the emissions, but it is of extreme importance to the community, and it is part of our ongoing waste management. So I think we are working with our procurement office towards a green procurement plan. My interim director, when she found out what we were doing, wasn't real excited about it. When I explained it to her, I heard a lot of my least favorite 4-letter word that begins with a C, which is can't. But it's already underway, and the assistant director in procurement that I'm working with has done similar planning in California cities. So I'm excited about that. We are looking at improving our solid waste and in particular our bulky waste collection, doing some splitting of that waste stream so that we can divert the wood waste a little better, updating the plan. And then we actually have pretty good revenue stream from pulling the landfill gas off of our landfill. We're actually selling it to California as a renewable energy source. Goal 5 is water. This is largely based on a lot of actions by Dallas Water Utilities. They are planning gurus and have been planning water systems since apparently the late 1800s. The photo on the right is from 2015 when we flooded Loop 12 for a couple weeks. That's largely because there is a missing pump station in West Dallas that the Corps is currently designing for construction. So this is in the area of both adaptation to make us more resilient to a future climate with more weirdness, and also to help with quality of life. So this is the top 5. And a lot of this stuff you'll see continue. Dallas water utilities, where a lot of the actions in the CECAP come from ongoing actions that they are already doing or planning to do, that are very consistent with what we need to do, both from an environmental quality and from an adaptation realm. Here's some more. You notice the drought contingency. One of the other things, WR8 is implementing major plan drainage infrastructure. That is the $300 million program that the city is doing with the Corps of Engineers along the Trinity floodway. And it basically increases the flood protection for about, I think it's 13 billion in resources relative to city and private business and homes through the central core of Dallas. It also includes the Peaks Branch, or what's the Peak Branch Mill Creek tunnel that will provide drainage relief for basically most of East Dallas, and diverts a lot of water from those areas that currently flood, like Medical Center, Fair Park, some areas like that, and diverts it to White Rock Creek south of downtown. Those two major projects provide a viable outfall for local drainage. Most of the city's risk from a drainage standpoint is in that local drainage system that was built in 1920 with cute little cottages, and we built some McMansions because it's really close to downtown. And we never updated the drainage system. So WR9 is to take a look at our drainage system outside of the floodway and come up with a capital improvement plan for that system. That's inordinately important to day-to-day living in Dallas. Drought contingency, emergency planning, it's ongoing. Our water supply group does a fantastic job. And I think I just moved to, yeah. So I would say the work they're doing is critically important. It reflects some ongoing efforts. One of the other things that will come out of the infrastructure planning is they are looking at green infrastructure. Typically, from a FEMA standpoint, our drainage facilities are designed for a 1% exceedance interval, and it's more commonly known as the 100-year storm. But it's basically that storm that has a 1% chance of happening in any given year. Green infrastructure is typically designed for about a 2-year storm. That said, it can be implemented for a whole lot less than what it costs to do gray infrastructure, and it can slow the flood pulse in an urban environment enough where you don't have the nuisance flooding as often. So it is part of the overall mix of things we're looking at. So our green spaces, this is in the use of a couple different things. One is climate adaptation. Dallas is second only to Phoenix for the amount of area that we have that is in a heat island. And it's fairly significant. So we're looking at leveraging green spaces. This is climate adaptation. It helps with air quality. It helps with heat island impacts. It helps slow that flood pulse. There are social and public health benefits. And so we're looking at this area, even though I've been accused of being a tree hugger, there are significant public health benefits from trying to green up our urban environment in Dallas. The photo on this is actually Clyde Warren Park, which we're expanding. I think it's a great example of basically greening up an area that would otherwise be concrete. So actions, again, blue-green infrastructure, increasing tree canopy. We have been working with the Texas Trees Foundation on an urban forest master plan We anticipate bringing that forward to our committee in February. And we continue to work with them on tree planting. EG5 is a very nice way of saying we're really looking at focusing on those leaf blowers. That came up a little earlier as well. They're presenting on their efforts to our committee in the first week in January. I think it's January 7th, but I'm not sure, whatever that first Monday is. And we will continue partnering. We do a lot of work with Texas Trees. We do a lot of work with the Nature Conservancy. We do a lot of work with the Trust for Public Land to expand our greenness in Dallas. I talked a little bit earlier about the food. The big thing there is we looked in our distance for food from farm to table, averages about 2,500 miles. When you look at the flooding that happened last spring in the Midwest, when you looked at all the fires that happened in California in the Wine Valley, we probably need to be looking at maybe a little more resilient food system. And again, we were looking at it relative to extreme weather events and disruption to transportation. With COVID, we've come to understand that there can be pandemic impacts to our food system as well. So we the two big ones that one of the things I was trying to do yesterday, among other things, was to get our request for qualifications out for the Food and Urban Ag Plan. This lists us as the lead department, but there's about 6 or 7 different departments that are also working on this with us, including economic development, innovation, code, parks. So we have a whole crew looking at our food plan and our food related stuff, if you will, across the city. We thought we were done with 7 goals, and we took that out to the community. And the reason we thought we were okay with 7 goals is all 7 of our goals address air quality at the end of the day. But the response we got from the neighborhood was not so fast. You need to have something specifically related to clean air. And so in this section, we're looking at cross-cutting objectives that will help with air quality, but we're also looking at addressing air quality at more of a neighborhood level. The map on the right is some work that the Nature Conservancy, the city, and Texas A&M University's Transportation Institute did relative to compiling absenteeism with poverty as a part of a project to put air quality, to see elements, to see if the asthma has a direct correlation with air quality. As you will see, the red dots, those are areas that have absenteeism over 28%, which is pretty high. If you don't have kids in school because they're sick, they're put at a significant disadvantage. The color shading in the background is percent AMI poverty. You will notice a bunch of those red schools are in high poverty areas as well. So we do have, again, some equity elements tied to the environmental parts of our plan. So the 4 air quality things that we have in our plan, one is to work with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Many people don't know this, but the city of Dallas is under contract with the TCEQ to install, maintain, and report air quality on their behalf. The monitoring that they have installed is the expensive type. And it is for assessing regional air quality compliance. And so it is not the same as the little purple monitors that you can order yourself. And so I need to make sure that everybody's clear with that. The other things that we're doing is partnering with nonprofits and schools, kind of like the last project I just talked about, to implement non-regulatory monitors in neighborhoods. I'm really excited. We're in the process of finalizing the agreements with both A&M and the Nature Conservancy. We should be installing the non-regulatory monitors in 10 different neighborhoods within the next week or so. So I'm pretty excited about that. The whole key to this air quality monitoring is the period over which you are monitoring air quality, your data quality objectives that you're obtaining, and your ability to calibrate your monitors. All of the monitors that we're using that are non-regulatory, we are calibrating against the regulatory air quality monitoring stations. And we do have some data quality objectives, and we're following kind of to make sure that we do in fact have data and not handy information to know. And I think that's critically important to understand, because there are other non-regulatory monitors out there, and they may or may not be being done under data quality protocols. So I'll just leave that at that. Our staff recently were given an award from the North Central Texas Council of Government for doing a pretty good pivot on how they provided outreach and engagement during COVID as a part of the Air North Texas program. We're continuing that work. Last but not least, and this might be the next slide actually, I think. Yeah, so the other thing is we did get a new monitor. We're looking right now, we have a gap in monitors near South and East Dallas. And so we're looking at working with TCEQ to get additional monitoring there. The second one is the air quality monitoring I just told you about with the non-regulatory. The very last one, and this is probably one of the most critical pieces in this, and I'm really excited. It's not a pretty picture, but we can't fix it if we don't look at it. But we're working with the GIS group in our planning and urban design department to map where we have environmentally impacted parcels. We're looking at prior impairment. We're looking at whether they're permitted under either air quality or stormwater quality or pre-treatment regs. We're looking at whether they're on the voluntary cleanup program with the state. In other words, we're doing a holistic look of where we've got potential environmental impairment as a part of updating our land use plan. This work is critically important. We are overlaying this data on both ethnic and demographics data sets so that we can assess where we have, because I won't say whether we have, because we do, where we have some environmental equity issues. And I'm very excited about this work because I think it will help us undo the red line, if you will. So the other thing that we do, we love to do plans in Dallas. This is a lot of the planning effort that came out of the CECAP that we're working with other departments on. And a lot of this work is critically important to being able to implement and fully implement the CECAP. And so it's kind of a global look. We've got a lot of moving pieces. So I talked a little bit about this a little bit earlier about our annual reporting to council, the updates to the greenhouse gas. The little graphic on the right is kind of is the cycle we're in. And the other thing that you should know is that we benchmark Dallas through the Carbon Disclosure Project and through the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy. I am very excited that when we passed the CECAP, that moved us up from a B category. We are now an A city under the Carbon Disclosure Project. And so that's improvement. And I'm very proud of our efforts that kind of got us there. This is our first year. We're really kind of looking at trying to build capacity. And this was built because we know that some of the things that we really want to do relative to retrofits, relative to providing incentives to do things, require money. And so we need to get our respective stuff together so that we can make a viable request for said money. Many of you have been here. This is our website that our fabulous climate scientist built when she was out on leave. She has since updated it so that the information with the environmental task force that I mentioned can be found. Right now it's on the resources page and you have to kind of root around. We received some clarification or requests for making it easier to find that information yesterday, which we will incorporate as soon as practicable. There is detailed tracking on our work plan. This will be rolled out. I think right now we've got buildings as a beta version, mainly just to make sure everything works and it's providing the information. We've had some folks that would love to have instantaneous data on this dashboard. The challenge to that is that we've got activities related to 137 milestones by 22 departments. And because we need cooperation from those departments, and we do other reporting through the EMS on a quarterly basis, we agreed to do quarterly reporting. So the first quarter ends at the end of December. We're hoping to get, as soon as we get the data from the departments, we've got it linked to a database and we can pull it up. So I would say look in January and we will start getting that data out there as far as where we are, but it's not there yet. And it's just because we don't have it. One of the other things that kind of goes along with that list of about 20 other plans, we have implemented an internal environmental group of those departments that are leading those complementary plans and efforts. Somebody asked earlier who was on that relative to, I think it was Fleet, and that is Donzel Gibson, who's the director, and Eric Coons, who is the assistant director. Eric is former military and handled fleet procurement there and is really familiar with the different opportunities, not just light duty, but trucks, heavier duty equipment as well. I think the other department that people were interested in is building services. And that gentleman, the director, is Eric Thompson. And his assistant director who's over the energy management program is Dr. Srinivas Vermuri. And he has a PhD that we pulled in from Hawaii, again, with experience with energy management and planning. And so that said, he was the one that was nervous about tornadoes. So I'm working on bringing him around on tornadoes in the heartland. And this has been a good way of coordinating. Again, we've got a pretty hefty data management effort related to pulling data in from these different areas. And so this helps us both coordinate our plans for consistency, but also coordinate the data collection. Task force, I talked about, we meet the third Friday of each month. The first two meetings, we, through a bunch of various means, worked very hard to have the meetings live streaming. We are limited on our platform. We cannot use Zoom because our IT department is concerned about security. So our choices are WebEx, which is kind of wonky, or Microsoft Teams, which is also kind of wonky. In those first two meetings of the task force, even though we did all kinds of things to make it work, we didn't have anybody sign up to listen in. So based on that, we've been recording the meetings and uploading the recording of the meeting immediately that day. There is a portal on the website if you want to comment relative to what the Sustainability Task Force is doing. There's a place for that as well. Similar to how the city does their committee meetings, there is not an opportunity to speak at the committee meetings, and it's just basically a function of wavelength. There's typically packed agendas. So there is the ability to comment, but it's not lifetime. We do a lot of stuff on our website. We do a lot of stuff on social media. We've been working with the library, and it's really interesting. We did a total switch from in-person to virtual outreach. And it's kind of interesting because the library was looking for content because a lot of schools and families are home and they needed educational content within their platform. So we've been providing, 10 or 20 events per month with the library on their platform. And it's been pretty successful. Again, our group has done a pretty significant pivot from how they normally did business. So somebody mentioned also the task force. This is the task force in all its glory. We are grateful to former council member Sandy Grayson, who agreed to come out of retirement to help lead this. Many of you may know Rita Beving, who's with Public Citizen, Sierra Club, and a bunch of other, I think 350.org. She also does a lot of work in the legislature. She has agreed to come on as vice chair. You will note 3 big red stars. NTREG is very well represented in this task force. Michael Martin, who I think is on today, Tracy is on today, Tony Robinson. Those 3 NTREG members have been really helpful towards both trying to help set the working agenda for implementing the CECAP and also towards implementing what that permanent board or commission looks like moving forward. So if you have ideas, feel free to pester them. And we totally appreciate both their participation in our meetings and the guidance that they have given us, both gently and sometimes not so much. But anyway, I think we've got a great group. We've touched on most of the areas in the plan. Our task force is also diverse, both with respect to racially and with respect to age. And so I'm really pleased with the group we've got helping to guide us forward. So the other thing I wanted to share, community solar came up. How am I doing for time? Ooh, I got to talk fast.
You're fine, Susan.
Okay, so we applied for 2 different grants at James Ornstein's suggestion. One of them is the one that I just got the report back on for developing a program to implement community solar. Our little bit of weirdness in Dallas is that we do not have a municipal electric utility. That's both an opportunity and a constraint. And so we just got our report back from this piece of it. We'll be using that report to frame a community solar program moving forward, and then we'll put it out to bid so that we can at least pilot some community solar opportunities in Dallas. And then the other one, this one actually is being led by the Solar Synergy group, which is James, and Green Careers Dallas, which is Tracy. And I think there's probably a few other of the NTREG members also working on this. And this is community solar via a parking structure as a pilot. And we're on this one, but I've really kind of let James and his crew take the lead. And we're happy and excited to see how this turns out. Lastly, this is another thing that we applied for when we thought we had no budget. When we started looking at our greenhouse gas inventory, we realized that the city of Dallas proper only is responsible for about 2 to 3% of the emissions. And so that we desperately needed assistance from both our community businesses and residents. And so this came up midsummer when we were looking at a horrible budget. And we thought, well, what the heck? We might as well try for it. So we applied. It is a city business climate alliance. It's with C40 cities who we applied to, but were politely declined. They took Phoenix and Miami ahead of us, which, while it kind of hurt my feelings, I understand that Phoenix and Miami also have significant challenges related to climate that are different than ours. It is also with the Carbon Disclosure Project and the World Business Climate Sustainability Network. So we applied just kind of on a whim. Their work program is generally consistent with our 8 areas in our CECAP. And surprise, surprise, we were one of 8 cities selected internationally to participate in this program. And so I'm very excited about this. We will largely be working to do kind of a business city climate alliance to promote CECAP in our local businesses. And we're looking at programs that are in Helsinki, Boston, and San Francisco to kind of copy, and London. So we just on Wednesday got approval by City Council to approve it. It's kind of interesting. The mayor signed it back in July, but then they realized that it might take staff time, and we are a city manager led organization. And so we needed formal direction to the city manager to let us play. So we're very excited about this. And this is kind of how it works, but I will tell you, we've had maybe 2 meetings. And so we still have a lot of questions about how this will roll out. They have a consortium through the World Business Climate Sustainability Group that has about 400 firms, of which several have Dallas either headquarters or offices. ATT has reached out. The Dallas Chamber has reached out. So I think this is going to be a really, really good program for us. And I think it's going to be really, really helpful towards a little more widespread adoption of the CECAP among our business community. And then last but not least, this is the trailer that we're working with a private firm to roll out at some of our local gas stations. So that's it. And this is one where they ask, the partnership is we provide ads and just said, yeah, it's an okay thing to do. And they're kind of running with it. So with that, this is how you can reach me. And I'm going to stop my sharing because I'm sure there's all kinds of questions floating out there.
Okay, so we'll just take it back to the screen. We'll
There we
just
go.
everyone. All right, let me change the view. So we have everyone. All right, let's do this. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. You can do that with the reactions in the bottom. You can raise your hand and we'll find you. Otherwise, open your video and ask directly that way. Melon, you have a question. You're muted.
Well, no question. I'm just opening my video.
Oh,
As recommended.
All right.
Sorry, I get it now. Open your video
No.
if you have a question. Okay, I'll.
No, we don't mind seeing you. I mean, that's the thing. I had a question that I asked earlier to the group, and so that last picture you showed of the mobile solar EV charging stations, do you think that would be something that could also be an air monitoring site because of solar power? And
it could. That's actually another thing that's kind of interesting. We have a thing for encouraging ride sharing to go electric. We had a recent meeting with somebody that participated in the 2019 EV week at Irving. Some of you may be familiar with them. It's ECARA. So ECARA is a Black-owned business. They are looking at setting up a mobility hub in West Dallas, which is a great idea. They use gently used Teslas for all their rides. They also have air quality monitoring on those Teslas. And we're working on maybe some air quality sharing. Now, again, it gets into it's the Edward Deming's rule of data. There's no value to any data, known or otherwise, unless you know by what method it was measured. And so we're looking at that because it's really interesting. He's also playing with drones for air quality gathering. So we're in conversations with them. So we could do that.
How about with DART and their electric buses, or anything that's electric?
Yeah, so
Put
we
air
have
monitoring on them
been
because they'll be
working
monitoring
with
everything.
DART and have signed several of their grant applications now, letters of support towards electrifying their buses. When you look at their ride share, a majority of people that use DART use the buses, not necessarily the US largest train network. We're hopeful that the work they're doing on their route analysis, because they're looking at redoing all their routes, may offer some opportunities for EVs. Their concern is being able to take a bus offline long enough to recharge it. That said, they've got some routes, like there's a route at the inland port where it's a very small circular route. They could very easily use smaller stock, which they would need to navigate that neighborhood anyway, and go electric. So we're working with them as we can. There's a similar request relative to Dallas ISD that I saw in the chart. They're interesting. I've been working with their sustainability manager, very nice man. I've been gently pestering him by sending him all the information I get on school bus fleet conversion. And also, they've got $1 billion bond program coming up. And I know Molly's been working on this, but they have some opportunities to build a little greener. I did see recent plans for the new City Lab High School. It's an amazing green. There's something, it sounds like a dirty word, but it's not. It's biophilia, which is basically a green covering on a building. So they're using some of that. They've got both solar and green on the roof. So they're slowly but surely coming around. I think the biggest thing that will help both probably DART and DISD is the bottom line. If we can show them that they would save money over time, I think it would be helpful.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I guess it's almost been, I don't know how long ago, at Paul Quinn College and at a North Texas rally, City of Dallas had some people out there with electric backpacks and what have you. And apparently they used them downtown and it was sort of a test. Where's that going?
I think we're still playing with it.
Do you think there's any chance in hell we could get a all electric lawnmower or lawn equipment ordinance passed in Dallas?
The challenge is one of equity. A lot of landscapers are low income.
Right, and ease of entry into the business, and
yeah. So that's a place where we would need incentives to help make that conversion.
Well, back on that, there used to be a subsidy paid to people that would take their toilets and change them to low.
We still do that, thrown for your home, but that is out of Dallas Water Utilities. That is what we call an enterprise fund. That comes out of your water bill. We don't have a similar source yet for incentives on yard equipment. I don't have any problem doing it. And every 6 months or so it comes up because someone woke up a council member with leaf blowers at dark 30 in the morning. And so they get irritated and bring it up. So it is something that comes up. I think ultimately we will and should do a landscape electrification. I am excited that our Parks Department has piloted it. The results of their pilot are generally positive. There's also public health related to the people
I
who
had,
use
they,
that equipment.
Dallas Parks uses electric equipment.
They're piloting it in some of their districts, not all.
I thought they were outsourcing it all to Good Earth. and
Nope, that's
getting out of the
streets.
business. At least that's my neighborhood.
Oh, they might.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So an interesting part, following on with Mellon, is if the city's parks and maintenance does go forward and the streets with more solar powered or electric equipment, they can use the batteries they're very efficient, but they can be recharged by solar, mobile solar stations. They can pull a trailer that can be solar charged where they can be charging their replacement batteries to go on, because that's usually a complaint that, the batteries only last, a half an hour to 45 minutes. They're usually out there for several hours, right? So,
Yeah.
that thinking a little bit outside the box as far as what those replacements are, they just replace the battery, they charge the new one, they take it, they can just keep on going.
Yeah, that's where
True.
the solar trailer might come in handy.
Okay,
Or a different type
For
of.
lawn equipment, but anyway, I'm getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
Robert has had his hand up for a while. Robert?
Sorry, Robert.
Yes, thank you very much. Enjoyed the presentation. Real quickly, I don't like legislation or rules to forbid gas-powered things. I think just noise ordinances should work fine. But my main question is, I was a little bit concerned about some of the discussion. I wonder if you could elaborate on you seem to want to discourage people from driving in their car when they're alone. And a lot of people have to do that. And you also said you want to reduce the parking and make it inconvenient. So it sounds to me like you're trying to tell people they can't drive by themselves to go about their business, and it's going to be harder to park and probably cost more. So could you talk a little bit more about?
I can do that. So, and it gets back to what we're trying to do relative to emissions. Right now, our estimated emissions per capita are 14.5 tons per capita per year. Per our agreement with the Paris Accord, we're trying to get to 2.5 tons per capita per year in 30 years. In addition, the TCEQ has just upped the ante, if you will, relative to air quality. We're going from non-attainment to severe or significant non-attainment, and we'll have to ramp up measures to improve our air quality. And I don't know what time frame they're going to give us, probably that same 30 years, maybe less. So we're not going to get there with just doing signal timing and converting 635 from 10 lanes to 18 lanes. So we need to probably look at how we get around under that lens. Right now, the design aspects that Dallas has used over time and the way our infrastructure is laid out, it is a hub and spoke type system. So you have to go to the center to go back out and go wherever you're going. Additionally, we have been basically designed around a car and people's ability to use that car. We have significant levels of transportation where we have people going from South Dallas to Plano to get to their good paying job. And we have some land use and development where the people that are driving to Plano for their good paying job can't afford to live there. And so we're looking globally at how do we, as we move forward and redevelop, because for the most part, Dallas is pretty well fully developed with the exception of the southern sector. But as we look at new development and as we look at redevelopment, how can we revision Dallas so that you don't have to drive clear across town to get to a job? And so that you don't have to get in your car by yourself and drive to work. I will tell you from personal experience, I live about 6 miles from downtown Dallas. I can get there in about 10 minutes by car. I can get there on a good day in an hour and a half by DART. It just doesn't work. And so, so we need to kind of look at these things. Transportation forms the largest sector of our emissions, more than buildings, more than energy. It is the largest single sector. It is a place where we have the ability, if we take it, to address that sector. The challenge that we have in parking is parking spots from an economic standpoint are $30,000 to $40,000 a piece. It is not a viable land use. And so we're looking holistically at, and it's not going to happen overnight. It is, can't afford it to happen overnight. And as I also said, is it is not one size fits all. So some areas we may have parking, some areas we may not. So we're trying to potentially reduce the need for parking and reduce our congestion. Even the Governor Abbott says we can't build our way out of congestion because every time we build a road, it's if you build it, people will come, and you go from 4 lanes to 6 lanes to 10 lanes, and now we're looking at 18 lanes. Well, you know, we had a meeting because the folks in East Dallas were worried about 2 batch plants, but they weren't necessarily worried about the emissions coming from 18 lanes of traffic. Now that includes feeder roads, but so it's an evolving picture of how we look at how we get around. Are there ways of doing our communities so you don't have to go all the way around, but when you do, it's easier. And so we're looking at some very big picture, and it's not just my department. Our planning department is looking at it. Our planning commission is looking at it. DART is looking at it. Our transportation department is looking at it. We can't, status quo isn't going to work moving forward. I don't remember how many millions that the COG indicates that their estimates have for people coming to Texas, coming to North Texas, and coming to our Metroplex in particular. The traffic estimates that they have in the future are nuts. It'll just turn us into one big road. We have some environmental equity issues from 30, from 45, from 345. So the global picture is business as usual probably isn't going to cut it moving forward. And then the question is, what does that future vision look like? And to be honest, no one really knows. We've got some pretty good estimates on what's going to happen on status quo, and it isn't going to work. Is the challenge. And so we're working, and again, we're looking at things year by year. We're looking at things month by month. We're trying to plan and project forward as we can, but the jury on transportation is pretty close to out, that we need to look at different ways of transporting ourselves. And quite frankly, from an economic, from an air quality, from a business standpoint, continuing to support parking by policy is probably not good public policy.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I think Michael Martin made a good point in the chat that if everyone started moving towards more fuel efficient or electric vehicles, that would, there'd be a big increase in reducing air pollution issues.
Michael, I
Yeah.
think Michael Martin had a question as well, been
Oh,
raising
did
his
you,
hand.
Michael? I'm sorry.
No,
You
you're
want to
good.
ask your
Oh,
question?
well, look, Susan just mentioned, we're very growth oriented. That is the history and heritage of Dallas, especially this century. And we're experiencing it. For those of us who've been here a long time and who are invested here, like everybody on this call, is that good for quality of life and do we need it? It's a hard question because Dallas's DNA says, get all the Californians moving here, get all the other states to relocate here. But it comes at a huge cost. It's already hard enough for us to manage our backyard. And so that's the challenge that, Sue and everybody in the city have to deal with, and the chambers. But I would be okay if, immigration here would slow down. I mean, of our, fellow Americans
Yeah.
coming in here from other states, it something to
Well,
think about.
and
It's an interesting
actually
talking
one of the
point for another
things,
time.
well, no, and that is another thing that we're looking at is climate related migration. And we've already seen it. The poor folks in the Honduras, they got slammed by not one, but two Category 5 hurricanes in the same year. That's statistically not in the realm of modeling. And those poor folks have been trying to come up here for a while. And it's a very unfortunate situation, but it's not going to stop. Likewise, people in Arizona, if they have a new subdivision, they have to prove a 100-year water supply. Development in the desert is not sustainable. It's why I don't live there anymore. So I would anticipate the good people from Arizona or other places. California folks are moving here.
Mhm.
So I think the approach has been, we don't necessarily, that migration is going to happen. I don't know that we can discourage it. So how are we going to manage it? And that's where we are right now. How do we manage that migration that is happening in a reasonable way, where we don't rip out half of South Dallas or just end up in one giant parking lot? I hope I didn't get myself in trouble here. But
Well,
No, I've got lots to say on it. We'll talk. That's another conversation, but thank you, Sue, for your comments.
okay.
I appreciate
so
it.
you made a statistic in regards to greenhouse gas emissions due to transportation per capita, and that
Yes,
we want
it's
to,
not just for transportation. it's for
12
everything.
tons per capita. And if we did that reduction to what we want to do in 30 years, that would be 4/10 of a ton per capita per year. So 4/10 of a ton, is there any way we could calculate how many less miles driving that would be per person? Because the comment was that we're becoming restrictive and not allowing people to drive, but really, how does that equate to less number of miles?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And the short answer is I don't know. I haven't done that calc. I just know that it is a significant reduction. I know our first conversations with our transportation group, they very cheerfully told me that they could reduce emissions through signal timing. And then when they started seeing what all the emissions reductions were needed, they realized, oh no, we've got to do something more than signal timing. And so it's more than signal timing. It's more than even converting all to EVs. 60 to 70% of our electrical grid is carbon based. So it's nice that we convert to electricity and electrical cars, but if that source is still carbon based, we're not moving the needle.
Yeah, agree with that.
Hey, Dharma, I think you had a question. You have to unmute. Dharma, unmute.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Susan, fantastic presentation. I
Oh,
thoroughly
thanks.
enjoyed all your components. I think one of the elements that really needs to be talked up is the health impacts, and there's got to be a little more focus on it. Right now, the discussion has been mainly in terms of the nuisance component, if you
Right.
will, in terms of traffic and whatnot. And so there's a big chunk that's probably could be included in the total overlay.
Thank you.
And
I tend to agree with you. I know that when we were talking with our council committee about the CECAP, Councilmember Blackman from District 9 asked us what the bottom line was, and we told her public health. It all goes back to that air quality piece. And she's like, oh, okay. And you start looking at this stuff, and we're not really advocating for anything that we should not be advocating for. We do need for our residents to be able to get to one place to another as need be. We do need market rate jobs for everyone. And it would be really great if we could get to our market rate jobs easily, and have access to food, et cetera, et cetera. And I will tell you on the food thing, some people have said, well, why is the city involved with food? And, we've got kind of sort of a crime problem. And there's the old expression about being hangry. If somebody's not fed, they're not going to be thinking lovely thoughts about cats and dogs. They're wondering where their next meal is going to come from. And that sets up all kinds of anxiety. So, and I will also say in the food area that there are all kinds of nonprofits working there, but they're not necessarily talking to each other. So the city's role there is to encourage the existing programs to work better. But so there, you are absolutely right. That map that I showed relative to the work that we're doing with the Nature Conservancy is awful. You've got a chunk of kids that are not going to school because they can't breathe. They're set back from the get-go if they can't get an education. And if they can't get an education because they're not healthy, that is really, really not good. And so that public health piece is really driving the whole plan. And maybe that needs to come out better.
Well, that's everybody's problem.
It is.
Yeah.
Right on.
Thank you, Dharma.
Well, do we have any other questions from those that are on? And we appreciate everyone hanging tight. And if not, I guess we can close, Rosa.
Yes, Susan, tremendous presentation. Thank you so much. I was really kidding when I said you didn't have enough topics in there. I really was. I'm a nerd. I tend to like to read those things, but it just shows the level of deep dive that is taking place into each of those issues. I just want to say our next meeting is on January 9th, and it will be our annual field trip. We will be having a field trip through the electronic recycling with Terry Schultz. And so we're setting that up, and I hope people come and join us again. Thanks again to everybody. Thank you for your questions and participation. And just a reminder, we've got board elections in February. Look on the website, see if you're interested in running for any of those positions. And we also need help with the legislative and policy committee so that we can keep track of what's going on in the legislature with respect to renewables. We need all the help we can get. We can't do it all ourselves. Y'all are a huge part of what we do. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Just
Good
want to
night.
remind everyone.
Bye.
Just want
Bye,
to remind
guys.
everyone
Thanks.
you can save your chat by the file at the corner, the little 3 little dots, save your chat. That way you have all the links you can go to later. Susan, thank you again. And the video and her PowerPoint presentation will be a PDF file, will be on our website. And I think James kindly provided links to those where those will be. So again, thank you everyone, and we'll see you in a month.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holiday.